Welcome back. You're watching To The Point. There are just 5 days left for the voting in Maharashtra, and it looks as if it will be a tense contest with the four big parties fighting to prove their strength. In these circumstances, what are the Nationalist Congress Party's chances? And is it prepared to accept they look bleak, or can it pull a rabbit out of the hat? That's the first point I shall put to one of its most senior leaders, Praful Patel. Mr. Patel, we are exactly 5 days away from the voting in Maharashtra. With 15 years of anti-incumbency against you, and with your Lok Sabha tally cut by 50% to just 4 seats, would you accept there's absolutely no way the Nationalist Congress Party is going to win an outright majority in Maharashtra?
Well, don't compare the situation, Karan, with what happened in the Lok Sabha, because things were completely different then. There was, of course, a huge issue in the country at that time against our government. Rightly, wrongly is not the issue, but it was there. And people were looking for change, and Mr. Modi was bringing that face for change. But now this comes to the state elections. I agree, any government which has been there for 15 years does have some plus and minus points. But the fact here is the political landscape in Maharashtra has changed hugely with the division of the, all the 4 major political parties. There are no 2 major groupings. So lots of things are going to change. And any party which professes to say that they have an absolute majority, everybody is trying to get that, but okay. I don't see a situation where any political party can make an absolute majority of 144 seats for itself.
I don't deny,
it's a completely different landscape.
I don't deny that the landscape has changed hugely with the 2 big alliances collapsing. The problem is, it's changed hugely against your interest. 3 separate polls show that of the 4 big parties, the NCP is going to be 3rd or 4th. One of the polls shows that you're only going to get 16 seats. Your vote count will actually come down to just 15%.
Well, I think, these statistics may be proven wrong. I mean, I'm not trying to discount any issues which you're raising, but the fact is, you see, we were contesting 114 seats last time. We have 288 seats to contest this time. And in a majority of the seats which we did not contest, we had very strong contenders for the seats, and they were the ones who were being deprived. And a lot of the cases, Congress people were defeating the NCP were working against the Congress. Those were also situations where in a large part of Maharashtra, the fight was actually between Congress and NCP, not so much against the parties like the Shiv Sena or the BJP. In fact, a lot of the candidates of the BJP Shiv Sena is to win because either the NCP or the Congress workers were supporting whoever they wanted to defeat from amongst the alliance itself.
You
so
clearly
I
see
think the landscape, that's why I'm saying.
You clearly see a silver lining.
If you look at even the, just I want to complete. You look at even the candidates of the BJP. I think of the 250 odd candidates they are contesting, almost 60 of them have been given at the last minute who belong to either Congress, NCP or the Shiv Sena. So,
let me interrupt.
Clearly reflects that it's not purely going to be driven only by something from the top.
Mr. Patel, you're clearly looking at the silver linings and you have every right to do so, but I'm going to concentrate on the cloud instead. And let's begin by putting to you the many problems you face. The first of them is Mr. Modi. He's addressing 24 rallies. He's drawing enormous crowds. He did so in your stronghold Baramati and Pimpri yesterday. The polls suggest, not 1 but 2 or 3 polls suggest he could get comfortably more than 150, which is a clear majority. The same polls say you'll be reduced to the size, perhaps, of MNS.
No, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry, your audio is not very clear, but I can still get the gist of what you're asking. And that is basically that because Mr. Modi is addressing some 30 odd rallies, it's supposed to change the landscape. I cannot agree with you on this point because in the Lok Sabha elections, there was a different mood in the country, and Mr. Modi himself was the face of the government which he now heads.
Okay.
The question in this poll is not about Mr. Modi himself becoming the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Number 2, they had an alliance with the Shiv Sena, which is no more. So that question of getting a combination of the two together and pitching for change. You see, now today Shiv Sena is also abusing the BJP, calling Mr. Modi Afzal Khan and so on. They're bringing in the Marathi pride, which earlier Mr. Modi also encashed on. There is also a question
Mr.
of,
Patel,
Mr.
I don't
Modi
deny that Mr. Modi has problems with the Shiv Sena and that those are going to cost him a little. But look for a moment on what Mr. Modi is doing to your vote share in your stronghold, Western Maharashtra. In 2009, your vote share in Western Maharashtra was 22.7%. The polls suggest it's come down to 18%. Meanwhile, Mr. Modi's vote share has jumped from 10 to 33%. Today, in your stronghold of Western Maharashtra, he's beating you by a whopping 15%.
But you're going by the statistics of the Lok Sabha elections, which I do not deny. But the fact is, there's a huge difference between what happened in the Lok Sabha and the current situation. And in Lok Sabha, please do not forget that the Shiv Sena BJP were together. And Congress and NCP, when you talk of our stronghold of Western Maharashtra, let me tell you that in the last 15 years, every single NCP leader of Western Maharashtra has always been consistently saying, please don't have an alliance with the Congress, because our problem is the congressmen then go and vote for the people who are in the Shiv Sena or the BJP, and that is what costs us. So in fact, to be honest, there's a huge relief, a sigh of relief in the NCP leaders, especially of Western Maharashtra and Marathwada, who say, thank God our alliance with the Congress is over.
The problem.
So please, see, this is not, this election is not about maths of 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, or that happened, therefore this will happen. It's a new, I would say, an alignment, a political realignment.
You're overlooking something. You're overlooking something. I agree that there may be huge relief in the NCP that your alliance with Congress is over, but what you're overlooking is when you have 4 big parties, and if you throw in the MNS 5 parties, a vote share of 25, 27, 28% is enough to give one of the parties an outright majority. Mr. Modi's vote share, as the polls show, is in excess of 30. It's somewhere at 31, sometimes at 32. And let me just elaborate that with one small example for you. Look at the Pune area. You have 21 assembly seats in that region. 8 of those were won by you in 2009, constituting 13% of your overall tally. Now, at the Lok Sabha, the NDA beat the UPA in 18 of those 21. If Mr. Modi can come anywhere near that strike rate, and remember, his poll share suggests he can, you're going to get wiped out in Pune. You won't get any of those 8 seats. You're losing, therefore, 13% of your tally at one go.
I think everybody's getting a little carried away by the Lok Sabha statistics, and there's no denying it's a fact of life that has happened. But again, I repeat, even in the Pune area, a large number of seats which the Congress was contesting in Pune area will be handsomely won by the NCP this time. So, it's a completely different scenario this time. I mean, I've been in electoral politics of Maharashtra for the last 24 years, and I have seen the situation on the ground. Wherever a political party was well established, of course, it has its own standing, but there are many multiple factors.
Okay.
Now, as I said, so many people who are Shiv Sena candidates have been erstwhile BJP workers. So with the BJP, so with the NCP, so with the Congress. So, the local level, you see, this is not, Lok Sabha election is a much bigger election.
I take your point.
There's only one focus at that time.
I take your point, this is not a Lok Sabha election.
There are so many local factors.
I take your point that there are local factors, and that's what I want to move to.
No, and one more thing, most importantly, Karan, is that including the BJP, are they going to say that Mr. Modi is a chief minister? They don't have a face here. Why don't they say, if they are so sure of winning, that so-and-so is going to be the face of the BJP?
I'm not refuting any of the points you're making. I want to come to the local issues because you insist this is an election that's going to be judged by Maharashtra issues, not by Lok Sabha issues. I accept. I also accept you don't want to go by the poll surveys. I accept that too. Let's then come to the local Maharashtra issues. The problem is, for many people in Maharashtra, yours has become a party of scams. Not just the irrigation scam, not just the PW toll scam, but also the medical exam scam and several others. And the polls say that today, for the people of Maharashtra, corruption is the single biggest issue. In those circumstances, this image that you have of being a party of scams is your biggest liability. It's an excellent reason for people not to vote for you.
Well, let me be again very forthright. This is just a charade. This is a campaign which has been run against NCP leaders. Over the years, nothing has come out. It's just, somebody, continuously trying to paint NCP into a corner. The fact of it is that even during the good old days, Mr. Khairnar had brought out a big campaign. Anna Hazare had a campaign against Sharad Pawar. All that has been absolutely of no relevance. At the end of the day, people realize, and there's a large section of this state, especially the farming community, which lays a very big emphasis on the policies of and the leadership of the NCP. And I think that remains untouched. This is a very urban, very media-driven phenomenon.
Can I put it like this?
I don't think it has got that much of traction as one is making. I'm not trying to suggest that there should be, no movement against anything going wrong or corruption. Absolutely not.
Can I interrupt?
But that's not the fact, because there's nothing proven.
I'm prepared to accept, for argument's sake, that this is just an image, it's just a perception that you're a party of scams, that nothing is proven. The problem is, politics and voting is determined by perception and images, and the image and the perception is overwhelming. People may not have proof that your party has people who are corrupt, but the allegations Ajit Pawar faces, and he's your deputy chief minister, are so serious that in fact you've had Prithviraj Chavan claiming that one of the reasons why you broke the alliance is because he was about to sanction an inquiry against Ajit Pawar and against Sunil Tatkare, and that message reinforces the image of corruption. How do you battle an image? That's the problem you face.
So then Prithviraj Chavan should be very happy that the alliance with the NCP broke. He's the most honest and the most well-regarded politician. If that's what he thinks, he should be the happiest person. Why is he carrying the baggage of the NCP? Then why was he and the Congress trying to have an alignment with the NCP?
I'll tell you what.
If we had no relevance,
I'll tell you the answer to that, and that's the third problem you face. At this moment, both you and Congress are fighting for your actual survival. It's not a question of alliance to come to power. It's alliance to survive in politics. And the mistake you've made, let me finish and then you answer. Let me finish and then you answer. The mistake you've made is that in previous elections when you won, you were fighting with the benefit of a Congress alliance on your side. Now, you're not just fighting with your back to the wall, but you're also fighting Congress. And the two of you are going to undercut each other. You're dividing your votes, not multiplying them. That's the third problem.
Listen, if I'm going by your own logic, if the Congress is unhappy with the NCP and is feeling that the NCP is a liability, they have abandoned us. Okay, if at all that's the argument. The other side is, look at the national election. Why did we all, including the NCP, suffer a humiliating defeat at the hands of the BJP only because we were in association with the Congress? Can the Congress explain in that circumstance who is responsible and what were the circumstances for that?
I'm actually making a different point.
We have to...
I'm making a different point. I'm not saying that you are relieved or Congress is relieved by breaking the alliance. I'm saying that, in fact, after 50 years in power, with anti-incumbency staring you in the face and Modi threatening you, I put it to you that this was the wrong time to either demand an equal share of seats or a rotation of the chief ministership. I would have understood if you'd done that in 2004 or 2009 when people thought you were going to return to power. But in 2014, when you actually face virtual elimination from the scene altogether, these are irrelevant issues. And to break your alliance over these issues is a bit like a turkey voting for Christmas. It's like a vote for suicide.
We were very keen on an alliance. We are not denying that. We went all out of our way. We had a certain legitimate demand, which I think the state leadership just was not willing to give in. And I think, unfortunately, after the Lok Sabha elections, the authority of Delhi over the state leadership, or the willingness to rather assert themselves, has somewhere diminished. And that is one of the reasons it was like a rudderless exercise. We just didn't know whom to talk to. They were also going around in circles. I can't decide. Somebody else will decide. Who that somebody is, nobody is willing to bell the cat.
But do you know the irony?
That was the reason why this alliance drifted to the stage at the 25th evening of September, when, with 36 hours left before close of nomination, I think we were left with no options.
But do you know the paradox?
I don't think we were trying to
I'm not
disassociate
denying
with
the facts that you're giving me. I don't deny them. The paradox is both of you need each other for survival. It's not an alliance to come to power. It's an alliance to just survive in politics. And by breaking over issues that are actually irrelevant to survival, you've actually endangered your survival. That's why today, on top of your image of corruption, that's why today, on top of Mr. Modi's pulling power, and on top of the polls that are going against you, you're actually fighting people you should be allied with. You need each other, but you're quarreling with each other and digging your graves.
No, I think that's why, coming back to the original point I made, this is a very, very different kind of election in Maharashtra, which we've never experienced before. And with such a new kind of positioning of all political parties, there's going to be a lot of things which we feel will be driven also at the local level.
Okay.
There's nothing going to work because the state is moving in a particular direction, because it's become such a new situation, a dynamic situation in the last 15 days alone. If it had built up like this over a period of 6 months, 1 year, I would still be willing to concede certain things which you are saying. But in the last 15 days, I have also been traveling. I've been seeing things on the ground. They are completely different from what we've been experiencing ever. Therefore, today no national issues working here.
Let's then focus on how different this election is. Let's then focus on, Mr. Patel, let's focus on your point. Let's focus on how different this election is, because I accept it's probably a very different election to any earlier election in the last 25 years in Maharashtra. What makes it particularly different, in fact, is something that you may not like the sound of. The suspicion that continues that you broke with Congress because you have a secret understanding with the BJP. I know you and Sharad Pawar have denied it repeatedly. But why people continue to believe this suspicion is because you went one step further. You broke the government, you pulled out, thus facilitating President's rule and handing over the state to the BJP before the elections. You don't do that if the BJP is an opponent. You don't give an opponent even a 12-day advantage. You readily did it, which is why people say, is there an understanding behind this?
Well, I think, these things will always be spoken in politics. When something suits a particular party, they will propagate this kind of false propaganda. But the point here is, it's not a question of any alignment. If we had to align, we could have probably thought of it before the Lok Sabha election. That time also people were talking and whispering about such kind of some secret understanding. It wasn't there. This kind of
was it not that?
No, but it wasn't
it's not just Congress that's accusing you of sidling up with the BJP. It's not Congress alone. Just look at what Raj Thackeray told the Economic Times yesterday. Just yesterday, he says Sharad Pawar wanted to join the NDA even during the Lok Sabha elections, but the RSS objected. He says Mr. Pawar has had at least 3 or 4 secret meetings with Mr. Modi, maybe more. And then he adds, and I'm quoting him, "I won't be surprised if you see Pawar as a minister after the elections." And that's Raj Thackeray, not Prithviraj Chavan.
How seriously does Maharashtra take Raj Thackeray that you are giving him so much credence? I mean, anybody can write a nice fiction thriller and we start believing it. Everybody is, I'm telling you, that's why, Karan, believe you me, this is a free for all in Maharashtra this time. There is no established code of conduct. There is no, I would say, established thought process here. Even the voter is going to be confused merrily in this time of the election.
If this is just
Shiv
fiction,
Sena is accusing the BJP of being
Mr.
a party
Patel,
of
if this is just
Brahmin,
fiction, can you give me an assurance? If this is just fiction, can you give me a categoric assurance there is no question of the NCP stepping in to help Mr. Modi form a government if Mr. Modi is short of a majority? Can you give me a categoric assurance?
I am going to say one thing. I'm going to say one thing. Please, I mean, this is the television show is not a platform for any political party to spell out its ideology. The only platform which is there will be post-election. Let us see what Maharashtra
Your language seems to support the suspicion rather than deny it and refute it. You seem to be supporting what I'm suggesting by your refusal to refute it.
Asking a politician a question. No, there's not a question. We are fighting against them. We fought against them. Our track record is never to be with them. What are we, I mean, should we stand here and give a certificate and credentials of ours?
Yes, I'm asking you to, I'm inviting you to, and
when our own
if you want people to believe you don't have an understanding, this is the necessary step.
Speak that we have not had a truck with anybody.
The conclusion people will come to from your answer is that you're very cleverly leaving open the door for a future post-poll alliance with BJP.
We are fighting against them. Oh, my friend, we are fighting against them.
People have fought against each other and formed an alliance afterwards.
In the Lok Sabha elections.
In 1999, you fought against Congress and formed an alliance afterwards.
Let me give you, no.
In 1999, you did.
Categorical answer. You talked about, no, why did we join hands with Congress in 1999? That's a very clear, in fact, you've given me the answer. The question is that we did not want to align with the Shiv Sena BJP. We could have formed a government in Maharashtra with Shiv Sena BJP and NCP, and we could have been part of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee NDA government in Delhi. We chose not to take that path, and we said that let's keep our secular forces together. And that is why we fought against the Congress, but yet chose to, form a government in Maharashtra.
And the same thing could happen in 2014 when you fight against the BJP, but then choose to form a government with the BJP because it suits your interest to do so.
Okay. Come on, I'm not going to give you, going to give you enough fodder to just try to, use it against us. We are being very categorical. We are fighting to win. We're doing our best. We are doing our best to maximize our party's presence in the state. And I'm very categorical about one thing, that we're going to do better than all the, predictions which have been coming through. And we'll prove them wrong. But at the moment, all I want to say is our party has a our party has a very clear agenda.
Let me put another scenario too. Let me put another scenario
which is all encompassing. We don't represent a particular caste, region, or a particular limited ideology.
Let's take that as said and done. Let me put another scenario to you, which is being speculated at the moment. It may sound initially a bit contradictory, but it's being seriously speculated, as you know better than me, in Maharashtra by analysts and probably by politicians as well. And this is a scenario that you could end up forming a regional front with the MNS and the Shiv Sena to stop BJP forming a government. Is that a possibility? Is that a line of thought that you could follow?
That's what I'm telling you, that there is no thought process on that direction, or any direction for that matter. At the moment, our focus
that
is
you'll
only
admit to. That's what you mean.
Maximize and
none that you'll admit to.
No. I mean, anybody can say anything. Any hypothetical situation can be made out at this moment. Who knows what's the maybe we'll win. How do you?
Very unlikely, and you know it. Very unlikely, and you know it. The only way you can come to power is if a party falls short and needs your support and you're willing to give it, which is why I say, if Mr. Modi falls short, will you support him? If there's a possibility of a regional front, will you join that? Those are your only two hopes, and you know it. Your laugh suggests you do.
I don't agree. I don't agree with what you say.
Don't agree or won't admit.
My only point is that yes, it is a very complicated and a very unusual scenario in Maharashtra, which has never been witnessed before.
Okay.
So let's wait for the results, and I think you will get enough clarity. No politics. Why are you talking to me? My party, give any political party pose a question, they will not be able to give you a clear answer on what is going to happen.
You may well be right, which is why let's move to another subject. You may well be right. I accept it. No one will give clarity at this stage, particularly when the situation is so confusing, perplexing, and so full of possibilities on either side. I underline that. So full of possibilities on either side. Let's come to another issue. It's probably going to be the last I can raise with you. Your party, Sharad Pawar in particular, you yourself in particular, have accused former Chief Minister Prithviraj Chavan of slow decision making and of not clearing files. On Tuesday, Mr. Chavan told me that he had cleared 37,000 files in 44 months, and he says that this can be verified through RTI. Now, if he is correct, that amounts to 840 files a month, which is 28 a day. Why do you call that slow decision making?
I've been in government, and so you would also understand, because of your vast knowledge of how government functions. When you talk of files not being processed, it's not a physical file, some minor petty file which it has to go through the rules of business. We are talking of important files which make a difference to the development of the state or to large sections of people. We are talking of those kind of decisions. We are not talking of this is a very babu-ish answer, where I have cleared so many files, so therefore I cannot be accused of decision making, slow decision making. This is absolutely outlandish way of trying to
Are you
justify
suggesting that Prithviraj Chavan was more of a babu, less of a politician and chief minister, and that was perhaps his problem as chief minister, that he had a babu mentality and a babu attitude?
Of course. No, he was very bureaucratic. He would. I'm not trying to suggest anything to the contrary, but he was very bureaucratic. And on certain things, you see, leadership. What is leadership? What is Mr. Modi trying to demonstrate, for which you are getting so carried away, and everybody in the country is saying, wah wah? The issue is that somebody is saying that I am willing to take the bull by the horn. Somebody is trying to say that yes, I would like to be decisive.
And Pawar wasn't willing to do that.
And for that, I will have to take some.
And Pawar, you're saying, wasn't willing to do that. So I beg your pardon, Prithviraj Chavan wasn't willing to do that.
Mr. Chavan never took that kind of a proactive stance ever in the larger interest of the state. We are not talking of clearing a file which was related to a ministry which was run by the NCP or something. We are talking of large infrastructure projects.
One last accusation that your side has levelled against Prithviraj Chavan. One last accusation your side has levelled against Prithviraj Chavan. Ajit Pawar has told the Indian Express that in the last 2 months before Mr. Chavan's tenure ended, he cleared projects worth 1,800 crore to benefit his constituency. Is your party alleging some form of nepotism or corruption?
Well, I think what issue has been raised is correct to the extent that there was an undue haste in the last few weeks, months to clear a lot of files. And those files were not concerning any larger issues of the state or any developmental projects of the state. So I think while we leave it to the judgment of the people, but the fact is that yes, undue haste was shown on certain aspects.
But are you alleging nepotism and corruption? Are you alleging nepotism and corruption?
Well, I don't know about the government of Maharashtra personally because I'm not party to it, but I'm sure if my colleague, who was his deputy chief minister, has said something, he would be speaking with some sense of knowledge.
That's what I'm questioning.
If that was true...
Let me tell you, that's what I'm questioning. Last Tuesday...
If my colleague has said it, he obviously had much more knowledge of the working of the government and therefore would have made if at all he's made that allegation.
He has. He made it to the Indian Express on the 3rd of October. And I'm questioning, I'm questioning whether in fact he has the foundation or the basis to make this allegation, because last Tuesday, I questioned Mr. Chavan about this allegation. Mr. Chavan brushed it aside as complete arrant nonsense and rubbish, and he said once again, anyone can check RTI to see whether he's cleared improper files. Now, when Mr. Pawar, Ajit Pawar let me finish. When Mr. Ajit Pawar, let me finish, then you answer. When Mr. Ajit Pawar made this accusation against Mr. Chavan, he said in a couple of days, he would provide and reveal details. A whole week has gone by. Ajit Pawar has provided nothing and revealed nothing. So I ask, is this a baseless accusation made without foundation?
This is exactly what I am saying, that people allege something. He said you can find out through RTI if something's gone wrong. The same thing could be found out about Ajit Pawar and whoever else is being allegedly corrupt in our system. Please find out what's been done wrong, and I'm sure there are enough remedies available. If at all, the same thing applies to Mr. Chavan. If at all he is trying to say that I cleared so many files, we are not going by the number. We are talking of the context of the files. And if Mr. Ajit Pawar has said it, I'm sure he, being in government for many years with him, would have more reason to say what he said. And therefore, let's not, simply, it's like the, accusing the other and saying, I'm Mr. Clean. That doesn't work. In Maharashtra, if things were so good for the Congress because of the leadership, then I'm sure they wouldn't have landed up getting 2 seats in the whole state in the last Lok Sabha election.
All right, Mr. Patel, let's leave it there. This is clearly a case of when friends turn foe, they can't stop quarreling with each other. Let's be grateful to you that you made time for me on these last few critical days before the voting to speak to the point. That was Praful Patel speaking exclusively
Thank you.
to the point. Goodbye. Good night.